fundamental supply creates it. What that means is if you just shove a bunch of people out into the labor market, that's going to create a demand for workers, right?
Or if
supply
I
does not
produce
create
a bunch
its
of crap, absent everything else, people can afford to buy it.
Right, exactly.
Even if it's unquoted.
Yeah. So, you know, the attack on welfare, the attack on unions, the attack on government regulation, and a reduction in taxes, okay? If you think about what was called supply-side economics, there's different terms were used to describe what was going on at this time, because it was new. It was conservative. Everyone knew these policies were going to distribute income upward. Everyone knew that was going to happen. But the argument was, you put money in the hands of capitalists. They're the ones that make the investment decisions, to drive the economy, and they'll see the conditions are so ripe and so wonderful that they will take that money that they are now getting in large quantities and they will invest it, and
Trickle down.
the benefits will trickle down.
So
that was the
Democrat
rationale.
Kennedy said a rising tide lifts all boats.
It's a rationale. Right. By the way, this rationale, despite the empirical evidence accumulated since 1980, still dominates thinking, and so that gets us to neoliberalism. Voodoo economics, some of you may have heard that term, and now we just throw it as a sort of insult to any kind of economic policy we don't like. But voodoo economics was a term that was invented, or at least first used, by Bush 1. And he was using it against Reagan. Because Reagan said, we're going to slash taxes. Now, this was a time when Republicans worried a little bit about deficits, right? Back in the old days.
Well, they still do.
Well, they do. It depends on who's in office and what kind of spending. Yeah, right. So, basically, he said, this is a serious problem. We can't be slashing taxes because we already have deficits. The deficits are going to get larger. And so the argument of voodoo economics, this is what voodoo economics is that when you lower taxes, it will generate so much new, massive capital investment that you will have high rates of growth. And so even though the tax rate is lower, you're actually bringing in more revenue because there's so much more economic growth. And this wasn't, somebody said this is voodoo economics, and there's this guy named Arthur Laffer. He's still around, by the way. He created a curve, right? Now you might say, how did he come up with the curve? He just made it up, okay? The curve basically says, if you reduce taxes, revenue goes up. Anybody could create a curve that shows that, right? An X and Y axis.
But wasn't in the sophisticated settings where I think it was actually on a bar, restaurant napkin?
He drew it on a napkin, okay? In California. At lunchtime, we used to call it a fern bar, okay? We don't have fern bars anymore, okay? That's an old thing, right? So he just came up with this, it's called the Laffer curve. And so the idea was, put money in the hands of the wealthy, put money in the hands of the capitalist class, redistribute income, which is what the capitalists hate redistribution downward. They don't mind it upward. So massive redistribution, and the idea was that they would take that money and invest it and move it all.
And not only that, what I think, bringing the political into the economic was, we'll be able to afford to spend a hell of a lot more on defense and still have a surplus, even though we're cutting taxes now.
That's right. And the defense budget was expanded dramatically. Under Reagan, we're seeing a repeat of this, okay? And by the way, the voodoo economic argument was used by Trump's advisors. Right. Somebody calls it deja vu. That's the best joke I had. Okay, that's the best fucking joke. And I stole that from Robert Cutler, who's a great economist. Right? Deja vu all over again. This stuff doesn't go away. And to some extent, it's so elegant. I mean, it's such an elegant idea, right? You cut taxes, you put lots of money in the hands of capitalists, they invest it, the economy expands, and we have so much more money being produced, right? The economy is flowering, blooming, blossoming, that more than compensates for the lack of revenue you would get, from the actual tax rate. Market fundamentalism is another term that's often used to describe. So what I'm saying is we're shifting from this labor capital accord period to a new political economic regime, a new political economic philosophy, a new theory, a new set of policies. This was the fundamental shift. This is the most important thing for people to understand, is that in the 1980s, we fundamentally restructured the economy in such a way to benefit the capitalist class. Okay, this was a class project. It's a project. Lots of people say, well, you know, the economy just evolves in sort of no, it doesn't evolve in natural ways. Okay? It's a social science. It's a political economy. Okay? And so, you know, and by the way, the term neoliberalism is a term used to describe all this now. Very confusing term because people say neoliberalism. I like liberalism. You know, I'm a liberal Democrat. It has nothing to do with liberal Democrat philosophy. This is classical economic liberalism. Classical economic liberalism is free market, laissez-faire, no government intervention, let the market solve all the problems, privatization, that kind of stuff. That's what we mean by, that's the liberalism here, okay? Because the term is very confusing. So some people call it market fundamentalism, and that has a double meaning, because on the one hand, the argument is that the market is the fundamental driver of all economic activities, and don't fuck with it, right? And the term fundamentalism is useful because it's faith-based. This is really a faith-based economic doctrine. There is no empirical support for 95% of neoliberal economic policy, at least in terms of what they claim it will do for us. Okay? It's been very successful for them. So it's not that it hasn't been successful, but there's no such thing as a general interest in this case. All right, so now we have neoliberalism. So what did it involve? You know, you can just take the things. Oh, yes, thank you.
So normally when there is fundamentalism and it evokes religion, there is you're giving the people something that they believe in, that they can get evangelical about.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that there was no empirical, true kind of support, but what is out there convincing people that this is working for them? It was just an idea and people just bought it, or
It's very seductive in its association with freedom and liberty and less government. Okay, those are things, and, you know, you also have to put this in the context of American culture, individualist culture, which those things, you know, if you go to Europe, they have entirely different kind of, in my classes, I try to, when we talk about capitalism, I try to tell them there's capitalisms, right? There's different types of capitalism. I mean, we have probably the most conservative, what I would call predatory form of capitalism among, you know, the major economies. So in like the Scandinavian countries, there's just a different ethos about collective responsibility that doesn't lead one to say, oh, the government should be involved in that. What they say is the government has a responsibility. Like the right-wing parties, I was in Iceland, the right-wing parties in Iceland, they all support like the welfare state, they support unions, they support universal health care. I said, well, what makes them right-wing? Well, occasionally they like to loosen some of the regulations. Yeah, and we know what happened in Iceland when they removed some of the regulations of the financial sector.
And worse. What about, would you include Japan in kind of that Nordic?
Japan is sometimes called communitarian. There's all these different terms to describe, like, there's like the Mediterranean, you know, you can really slice it. So we're like the Anglo style. So it's like U.S., Britain, maybe Australia, but now we know that Australia has the best healthcare system in the world. I don't know if you know that, Trump said it. He didn't realize it was a universal healthcare system. So, yeah, so there's an Asian style, right? There's a Asian style. But it is much more collectivist, right?
Singapore as well.
Yeah.
I don't know as much.
So, for
Yeah, sure.
Wouldn't another general incentive also be the perception that lower taxes are going on anyone's income are going
Yes.
to leave more income for anyone?
Yes.
Yeah, part of the attraction. Seduction.
Yeah. And you know, when your wages are stagnant, lower taxes sounds even better. Because it's all about consumption. You know, we have a consumer capitalist economy. So the lure of low taxes actually ties into the fact you're depriving your workers of wage increases, right? And for those of you who follow the economy, like stagnant wages since 1980, well then taxes become even more important, right? Or at least the rhetoric of lowering taxes, okay?
Of course.
But there's a tax burden, right? Where does the tax burden actually fall?
Yeah, and I would say that's where the conservatives, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah, no, that's
the 82 tax increase, I still believe inflation adjusted is the highest of all time. And that is a doubly regressive tax where working people are still, we're still paying it. And there was one small attempt to make it more progressive, and